It is tier list season again in MLB The Show 21. This is right before the new postseason program drops. We're getting new postseason cards each week. As the postseason goes on, we're going to be seeing a lot of new cards that get added to the meta here, along with a likely future finest release, where you'll see a lot of endgame cards there. We're slowly creeping into the final endgame of MLB The Show 21. So let's go over our tier list, go through all the best players, and at this point in the game, let's see who is going to carry into the final part of MLB The Show 21. Let's get into it. What is going on, everyone? I appreciate you all watching this video. In case you are brand new and don't know, I upload a lot of other tips and tricks to help you get better at MLB The Show on the channel here. Also, we go in depth on other gameplay things, investigating stuff to see how much we could look into certain attributes and things not shown in the game. So if you're brand new, make sure you hit that sub button if you're looking to get better at MLB The Show. Also, I do stream on Twitch, so if you want to come hang out with me there, watch me play ranked, whatever you want to watch me play, we do a lot on there. Make sure you come swing by the Twitch, twitch.tv/scan. And if you do enjoy this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It helps get the video out there. And it's just good to hear your feedback on these tier lists. We've done these a lot, so I want to thank you all for enjoying these and watching these videos, because I know you guys have definitely liked them. Without taking up any more of your time, let's go into the tier list. Let's go to our catchers here and go through what the best catchers look like. So this is my tier list for the catchers. There has not been much change on here. The catchers we've gotten over this last month or so, I guess we'll say, have not been the best. Not that they're bad, but not much change at the top of the tier list for catchers. So you look at the tier list, there are a bunch of options in the S tier. The best of the best have good enough offense, especially guys like Piazza and Schwarber. Great hitters, great bats to use in your lineup. And at catcher this year, I feel like defense isn't the biggest deal. You know, silver and above is more than fine. There will be the occasional pass ball, but you don't need much more than that. It's worth that sacrifice in defense to get that type of offense out of your catcher. You look at the other options, there's some sort of downside to many of the other catchers. For example, Grandal is the slowest player alive. Adley Rutschman is a good defender. He doesn't have the pop time quirk, but he's a switch hitter with some solid hitting. Not as good of a power bat as the other options we listed before. And then Pudge, again, just lacks the power, but has the contact and defense. And if you like that type of hitter, Pudge is a great catcher to use that I personally think a lot of people underrate. In our A tier, I know a lot of people in the last video, they went at me for putting Real Muto here, but I mean, the card isn't as good of a hitter as these guys here. He's a solid, well-rounded hitter, but not as good of a hitter as a lot of the S tier catchers. The defense isn't as good as Pudge either. I mean, other than the pop time quirk, I don't know if he's as good as Rutschman either. The speed is not bad. But if you're someone who's been using Real Muto, maybe have him high parallels, you could keep using him. Very cheap to acquire, not too hard to get. Great catcher, but I don't think I can put him S tier. I'm sorry. But the other catchers here on the list, they vary in terms of the type of position you're in. If you're someone who took a break in the game, you could use one of these lower tier dudes from D to B. Also, good guys like Gary Sanchez are really easy to acquire. These are really the players you should be considering for your God Squad. Yachty and Caber are solid, but Yachty's just a not as good Pudge in my eyes. And then Caber Ruiz could have a little bit better hitting. He is glitchy. He's someone that people have liked in the past. In terms of Battle Royale, people like his gold card a lot. But in terms of like a God Squad player's point in the game, these catchers are likely going to be better for you. And Caber is going to be a very fun BR card, but that's really his niche. First base, as you see on this list, is just extremely deep, and it's something I'm constantly tinkering with. I know if you looked at the last tier list video I made, the S and A and B tiers just look completely different. This is because of how I personally viewed players. I had Mattingly and Olerud lower than before. I always want more power at first base, but Olerud and Mattingly actually are solid. That power almost plays above the power that they have. I don't know exactly why, but they square up the ball a lot. With 80 to 90 power, they can hit for that home run power like many of these S tier players. But I just prefer to have like 100 plus power. This is a position where power is at a premium, so I like to maximize on that when I can. So I don't like to use them unless I really don't have many other options. In terms of our first baseman here, let's look at some attributes of the best in the game here. Lou Gehrig, just saying, definitely best first baseman in the game material for me. The hitting attributes are just a little bit short of Frank Thomas, who is going to be probably the best just raw hitting first baseman in the game. He's got 125, 123 contact, top tier. The 125 power versus right cements 125 and 125 versus righties, which this game is definitely in a righty pitching meta. A lot of people who are using a lot of right-handed starters, and Lou is the best counter to that with the 125 and 125. Also, vision, a lot of people underrate that attribute. I like it, especially on the higher difficulties. It keeps you in at bats. You get some more fluky home runs with that higher vision. It's definitely a bigger deal than people make it out to be, in my opinion. Best first base in the game in my eyes. That gold fielding is better. While you can use bad defense at first, getting gold makes this Lou Gehrig a lot more viable defensively than that Frank Thomas, for example. And as you see, our other first baseman on the S tier, they are very close to Lou Gehrig offensively, but they have some sort of drop off. You know, Ortiz is a lefty, great versus righties, but again, like Frank Thomas defensively. Vlad is very fun. I love him, but he's got the reverse splits. He is good versus lefties still, but I think Lou is going to be the best bat you're going to see of this bunch. A lot of other options we have, like Todd Helton and Matt Carpenter, very good hitters. The only reason I don't have Carpenter up here is because he doesn't seem to excel versus righties or lefties. 100 and 110 contact is good. It's definitely like top tier, but if he had like 120 plus versus righties, I would put him in the S tier. But he's just a little bit weaker. And that's really getting nitpicky. That's how many first basemen we have. You can really get nitpicky with that hitting. Look for the best of the best. And all these dudes bring good contact and power. And that's who you really want at first base. Carpenter, though, great second base and third base option like we're going to talk about here. Now we go to second base. And again, since the last tier list, I did make some adjustments. We had some new options like 99 Anthony Rendon. They added in the event. They have the new 97 Nolan Gorman as well. Very solid options that lead up to the S tier. However, the S tier is still very similar. I did move up Alfonso Soriano like some people mentioned in the previous comments. I may have slacked his contact a little bit too much. I forgot how much I loved Soriano for a while. He's definitely a very viable one. But again, in this S tier, like at first base, Mookie should be the guy you're shooting for at second base. If you can get him, play him at second base because outfield is very deep. And these options are more lead-up options, but they are a step up from these A-tier options. And then other than that, these other second basemen are very solid. They do bring well-rounded hitting. For second base is always going to be very slim. You're going to have only a few options that are the best of the best. You should really also consider playing a shortstop at a secondary, a second base, if you don't have Mookie Betts, because you will find more power options there in comparison to second base, which is normally a speedier position. Speaking of shortstops, shortstop is definitely pretty deep at this point in the game. There's definitely going to be a lot more big names to come out. You could expect a Tatis card. You can expect a few more live series, or at least current player shortstops get 99 overalls, and that's going to make this position extremely competitive in the end game here. But as we go through our options, your S tier players are all very close. There's no runaway best shortstop. It's unlike first base and second base where you could really list one or two players that are leaps and bounds above the others attribute wise, but there is an option for you. Trey Turner is the offensive option if you just want the best hitter, but you're going to sacrifice defense. If you want that contacty, middle-of-the-road power type hitter, like those Roberto Clementes, Jackie Robinsons, then Honus Wagner is going to be your guy, especially because he brings good defense to the table. If you want a switch hitter, Lindor and Wander Franco are both legit options. Barry Larkin, I think, is one of the most underrated shortstops in the game. As we get to the end game here, he's slightly less attractive because he doesn't really excel. Like, he's not amazing at anything. But 100 plus hitting attributes versus both sides. Very nice card. Hits for power. Gets those slappy singles. And with a couple parallels, it gets diamond fielding. Speaking of underrated, I think this Tim Anderson is also very underused and underrated. I don't see enough people rock this card. And I don't really know why. You know, a couple parallels will give him diamond fielding just like Barry Larkin. He's very close to Larkin, honestly. And then Javi Baez is also a very solid shortstop option. And then in our A tier, B tier, C tier, these are just guys that, you know, they're up and down in value just based on how easy they are to acquire. A lot of your B and up players are going to be viable in the end game here, but especially A and S tier, these are ones you want to look out for. Some in the A tier can play to this level, while some people may not just like the S tier players at all. Their options at short, you may want to choose two of them, put them on your team in some way, shape, or form. You're probably looking good. Now we go to third base, and third base is just an extremely deep position. It's almost like first base, where you just have a lot of really good options. If you were to include secondary positions and give all the options at third, you have just tens of choices. I think Chipper is still like the runaway best third baseman, switch hitter, great hitter versus both sides. Gold fielding eventually, if you've been using him. I think he's the guy still, especially for me, he's my best hitter on the team throughout the entirety of the year. But there are a lot of really other good options you could throw on your team, and the rest of the S tier and A tier are all really, really close to each other, especially this top part of the A tier here. First, we gotta look at Torkelson here. I mean, the reason he isn't an S tier is probably only because of the contact. Not that 102 and 109 is bad. As we get towards the last part of the year here, you're gonna see a lot of players with like 110 plus contact versus both sides. And Torkelson's a little bit short. Obviously, a lot of people have Chipper, so he's going to be the most appealing option, especially as a switch hitter. But Torkelson here is definitely a legit third base option. That power should play, gold fielding. I honestly think a lot of people are not giving enough love to this card. Obviously, Hank Aaron is a big pick in this inning program. Torkelson here, I would love to give him some more use on the God Squad, that's for sure. One card that we definitely need to talk about here is the new monthly program. Eugenio Suarez is a 98 overall. You just get him from completing the monthly award program, and the hitting attributes, I mean, unreal. Like, the only things that could really be taken away from his card are the vision, a little bit on the speed, and, you know, the clutch isn't going to be the worst thing. Like, clutch isn't like an attribute I would 100% worry about. But if you're just looking for someone else to try at third, I wouldn't play him at short. This Suarez should be unreal, especially with the quirks. He has a couple of solid quirks that make him beneficial. Great bat versus righties, and honestly, I'm going to be using him on my second alt account here for at least the start. And looking at this Anthony Rendon, the main reason I don't have him in the S tier is just his power. I mean, the contact is solid, the defense is good, but that contact and power could be a little better in comparison to our end game options here. This card is usable, he'll do damage, but he's definitely not going to be the best. Now we go to our outfield, and honestly, the outfield tier list is just a cluster. There is just so much to look at and so many options, and this is one of the definitely deepest positions in the game. Obviously, outfield, you have 3 players, but essentially you're going to choose 3 players you do the best with and put them all together in the outfield in some way, shape, or form that works the best defensively. Anyone B tier and up is definitely going to excel and be great. Depending on the player you are, whoever you like, whoever you enjoy the most, those players are going to be very good options, but you got to find the ones you do best with. In our A tier, the thing that keeps them from the S tier, basically, there's usually one small weakness that every one of these cards have that keep them out of the S tier, whether it's the defense with not bringing enough hitting. Maybe they have very platoony splits like Larry Walker. Maybe they just have a noodle arm like Cedric Mullins. These cards are very good cards if you use them, but they're just a little bit short from the S tier. The S tier, I think, just bring a lot to the table. They don't really have much of a weakness, and if they do have a slight defensive weakness, it is made up by the bat. That's for sure. Like, they're top tier hitters. Going through our S tier outfielders here, there are a few that we need to talk about in specific. First, we have the 99 Hank Aaron. A lot of people are comparing him to that 99 Tyler O'Neill that we got in the monthly award program, and they are very close, but I've used Hank. He's great versus lefties. Again, that vision is a big deal to me. The diamond fielding in left. And the beauty of Hank Aaron here is you can move him to first base I would treat him like an S tier first base option, like Frank or Lou Gehrig type hitters at first, if you are looking to do that. But Hank is definitely going to be most valuable in left field, right in his primary position. Speaking of Tyler O'Neill, these two are very close. O'Neill gets a little bit more contact versus lefties, but takes a little bit of a bump versus righties. And I have Hank above O'Neill for that reason. You face a lot of righties, and the slight deficit in the matchup versus righties definitely puts him a little lower to me. However, this card does mash. The 94 fielding in left is great, 99 speed. Honestly, a very good center field option if you parallel him once, he'll get diamond out there. You could use him anywhere in the outfield, very versatile card, and I'm looking forward to use him here. However, just keep in mind, yeah, that vision, a little low. He's going to strike out a little bit. He's like that Matt Kemp card a bit, but with a little better defense and speed. I like this card a lot, though. Very legit outfielder. One player that's definitely on the fringe of S and A tier, he's right on the edge on my tier list, is the 99 future star Jarred Kelenic. Very well-rounded center field option. He really doesn't have a weakness. He's very well-rounded. Just the only thing that I would say this card is weak in is that he doesn't really excel at anything. He's not amazing at anything, you know. 115, 110 versus right is very good. And he's definitely solid versus lefties with 99 and 100 power and contact. But then again, like, there are better players at this point in the game. This card came out a month ago. This would be like a really good use in center, but you know, we have Mickey Mantle and Hank Aaron and this Tyler O'Neill, and there's just so many outfield options. I don't know if you can fit him in. I do want to use him, but he's definitely right on that fringe of A and S tier. Once we get more and more players, he'll probably be in the top 10 of the A tier for me. And then obviously we got to talk about the other inning boss, 99 Tony Gwynn. I mean, I personally think people do underrate this card a bit. I know he doesn't have the best power, but he really is great otherwise. The diamond fielding, the 89 speed. If you play on Legend, if you're someone who is trying to give Legend a go, and you're looking for someone with high contact, Tony Gwynn should hopefully play well on there with the 125 and 125. And 67, 69 power is definitely low at this point in the game, but he will hit the ball hard consistently. You know, back in MLB 19, his card had some really sleepy power. Like, he was a start of the year card back then, and he stuck on people's squads for a while because he had some power, and these type of players can still hit the ball hard, so don't completely count them out. But yeah, in terms of our outfielders, definitely not an S tier guy because of the lack of power. And going back to the tier list, the outfield I'm currently rocking is Mickey, Aaron, and I think I'm rocking Bellinger in right for now. Like I said before, I like Bellinger a lot versus righties, and I'm planning on platooning him with Tyler O'Neill for the time being. O'Neill comes in versus a lefty, Bellinger stays in versus righties. Great defense matchups for that. But you know, honestly, I could just be using Larry Walker out there over Bellinger. Overall, Belly's fun, but he's probably going to be in that A tier come the end game here. I'm just waiting for my 99 Griffey to come out, and that'll be in my outfield probably for the rest of the game here. In terms of your hitters, like I said before, you could basically use anyone. At this point in the game, there's a player you've been doing well with. Keep them in your lineup if it means you're having more of a fun time. These are just a list to give you a good direction on who to use hitter-wise. At the end of the day, there are a lot of options, and I want to give you the right direction attribute-wise, so you're making your teams the best as possible if you're, say, doing a World Series push. Now let's go into our starting pitchers, and as you'll see, our starting pitcher is just like outfield, where the position is very deep. There are a lot of options, and there is a lot of personal taste with the starting pitchers here. It's all down to things that you enjoy, the type of difficulty you play, the type of pitcher you are. Obviously, our S tier is still very similar. I've learned that this Jake Arrieta is legit. He is a top tier starter, no doubt. The high velo sinker, 90 plus mile per hour slider plays very well on the higher difficulties, and he will be very, very effective. In our A tier, not much has really changed. You know, we have some pitchers that are right on the border of this, like Vida and Hal Newhouser. You know, you could go either way with these. We have a lot of our TA4 starters. As we go into the end game here, the main starting pitchers I'm waiting on are a potential 99 Corbin Burns, because that card would be S tier, no doubt. He'd have a solid hits per 9, very likely. Sinker cutter mix. Would be a very legit starter, like no doubt in my mind. And maybe some other starters, like a maybe 99 Zach Wheeler. Anyone who's having a great year this year could be in that S tier. But to be honest, I don't know how many 99 overall starters we're going to be getting that are legends at this point. Like, I don't know who else we're waiting on. So, like, I don't know how much will change in this tier list as we get to the final part of the game here. Just to look at some attributes of some players, there are a couple players that are definitely worth talking about, especially in the A tier. First, we need to talk about the 97 Fernando Valenzuela you can earn in the run it back program. Obviously, if you use Valenzuela at the start of the year, you probably are very excited for this card. I have used him and he can be effective. The big thing with him though, you got to be creative, you got to be quirky, and you got to sell how he's got his weird motion to kind of play those breaking balls properly. You got to throw the circle change a lot to mix in the change of speeds to get people really early on the ball and really hit those corners. He can be effective with that 115 hits per 9, but I don't know if everyone is going to be as good with him as, you know, at the start of the year where he didn't have many other options. Definitely an A or S tier type starter for me. I'm going to give him more of a go and see how he is as I get into the later part of the game here. Also, a good card to look for if you're looking for a very easy to acquire starter, 97 John Lester. It's essentially Al Leiter light. Like, the 115 hits per 9 is big. His sinker cutter fastball with a little bit more velocity. He just doesn't have a slider, but that sweeping curve has that horizontal movement like a slider. He's kind of comparable to that Al Leiter. If you didn't like Leiter and you want that type of pitcher, try Lester. I have heard some solid things about him. He is on the border of A and S tier because I think a big thing with Leiter is his release point that allows his pitches to really like seem like they move more. I don't know if Lester gets this same type of effect. So he's definitely borderline A and S tier for me, but definitely a worthwhile starter to give a go for now. But other than that, on our starters tier list, I can't really expect much more change. I don't know how many starters we're going to get unless we get some crazy postseason cards. I think top of the line, a lot of it is going to stay the same as we get towards the last part of the game here. Finally, our relievers, our reliever tier list, starting to get towards the best of the best. As you see, our lefties are going to be dominated by Chapman, Miller, and Wagner, as they kind of have been the last couple years. You know, they are going to be the go-to lefties for many people. Wagner is the outlier fastball. I know his release definitely isn't as good as it was in years past, but no matter what, Billy Wagner gets the value of being a lefty. That slider should be solid. The fastball is going to be great at getting late swings. But all these S-tier pitchers are going to be the best of the best for many people. Guys you really want to get saves if you're looking for that. Then you'll probably sprinkle in a few of the A-tier relievers. A bunch of these guys are pretty viable still. Some I personally found were underrated. Big thing we're going to need to hope for is that postseason and finest gives us other opportunities for lefty relievers or just relievers in general. Some of the monthly award relievers we've gotten, there's only been maybe one in each program that has been very solid and the rest kind of eh. And I think it would be valuable to get at least a couple more 99 overall lefties that could be filthy. You know, if you get a finest Emmanuel Clase for the Indians, for example, that screams S-tier reliever all over the place. But just to look at a couple players in specific to highlight them, first we have 99 Billy Wagner. The hits per 9 is great. The Ks per 9 is great. He's got outlier in the four seam. He's going to have pretty solid control too. He's at 99 control in the four seam. Good break on all of the pitches. The changeup is just kind of there to be there. You don't want to throw it too much with him because it's not going to be a reliable pitch. You're basically going to throw fastball, slider, curveball most of the time. It is a big reliever to get lefties out, but honestly, I don't know how much excited I am for Billy Wagner this year. Just because I'm not going to bullpens as often, and I don't need 3 lefties in my bullpen. 2 has usually been my sweet spot for this last month or so here. And then in terms of one more card I want to talk about here, I want to talk about Camilo Doval. I think is how you pronounce this guy's name. He's in the new monthly award program. This card has shades of Rob Dibble written over it with the four-seam cutter slider, 125 hits per 9. But if you have used him or faced him, you know his release is quirky. If you know Aaron Loop, he's got a quirky release point. Doval here has Aaron Loop's release. Like, it's actually his motion, but on a righty. So he throws it to the side, It makes the pitches seem like they're moving more, and it's a very quirky release to read. And with this level of velocity, this card could be a little cheesy, man. So I'm going to be giving him a go and seeing how he is. And overall, that is it for the tier list. I know we kind of sprinkled in some players. We went through things very quickly because since my last one we made, there hasn't been the most change. I wanted to get this out there before the postseason content, before finest, because once all of that is like done and over with, I'm going to make a tier list kind of accumulating all of that, whoever ends up being the best, and that'll end up being one of our last tier lists of the year. So if you enjoy this, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully this sets you in the right direction when choosing players. And as we get towards the last part of the game here, these lists are going to get really chaotic and fun to make because there are a lot of fun, good players to use. If you are a YouTube member on the channel here, if you hit that join button and you do support the channel that way, or if you're a Twitch sub, you get access to exclusive channels in my Discord where I'll update these tier lists once a week, especially with postseason content and all of this stuff inbound. These tier lists are going to likely be updated once a week for me by hand. And if you are members of the channel here or subs on Twitch, make sure you hop in my Discord, connect your account, and get access to the exclusive channels that we have, because they are for the people that do support me that way, and I want to give something back to those people. So they get the tier lists in between the big videos that we do. We'll see you all again one last time, very likely, in the final tier list after postseason and finest. Yeah. Have fun making your lineups. Best of luck. I'll see you all again on next one. Deuces.